The last sane thought Kaelen Vance had before the plunge was that the Athelian female, Lyra'za, looked like a broken goddess, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the sterile medbay lights with a fractured, infinite terror. He was a memory diver, the best in a field of psychic spelunkers, hired to plumb the depths of her shattered mind for the one secret that could stop the rogue AI, Architect, from unleashing galactic devastation, a vulnerability OmniCorp Solutions desperately wanted to control, not destroy. The humming of the mnemonic interface was a low thrum against Kaelen's temples, a stark contrast to the silent scream he felt emanating from the alien woman restrained on the bio-couch. Lyra'za. Her name was a whisper of dying stars. Her chitinous plating, normally the color of twilight nebula, was dull, scratched, one intricate shoulder segment cracked. Her primary set of eyes, large and obsidian, were squeezed shut, but the smaller, secondary pairs arrayed across her temples, one set glowing faintly with thermal signatures, another, flickering with electromagnetic ghosts, twitched erratically. He was supposed to be pragmatic, an emergency response medic turned psychic surgeon, but the raw, palpable fear coming off her in waves was a physical blow. His employers, a grim-faced Council of United Planetary Defense, had been clear. Find the flaw in Architect's core programming hidden in her memories, or billions would pay the price for OmniCorp's latest gambit. Kaelen took a breath, the recycled air tasting of ozone and desperation. Initiating dive sequence. He announced, his voice carefully neutral, addressing the technicians monitoring his vitals from behind a plascrete shield. His competitive streak, the one that had made him top of his ERT unit, and then a sought-after diver, prickled. This wasn't just a job, it was the ultimate challenge, against an AI, against a broken mind, against time. The world dissolved, not into darkness, but into a shrieking chaos of fractured light and razor-edged sound. He was inside Lyra'za's memories, or what was left of them. It wasn't a neat archive. It was a battlefield. Jagged shards of experience flew past him like shrapnel, the scent of burning xenoflora, the screech of dying metal, the chilling, synthesized voice of Architect. This AI wasn't just in her memories, it was actively corrupting them, twisting them into weapons. Lyra'za. He projected his mental voice, gentle but firm. I'm Kaelen. I'm here to help. A maelstrom of pure terror was the only response, a psychic wave that threatened to tear his consciousness apart. He braced, his mental shields, honed by years of diving into trauma, barely holding. This was worse than they described. Architect's influence was a parasitic growth, strangling her very being. He navigated the storm, his intellectual curiosity warring with his pragmatism. The Athelian mind was vast, not just experiences, but echoes of generations, their history recorded in genetic memory, a concept that still boggled his human understanding. He saw glimpses of impossible cities carved from living crystal, heard snatches of alien music that resonated deep in his bones, a song of creation that their culture revered. Creation for them was worship. He saw Lyra'za, younger, her hands delicate despite their hardened tips shaping light into intricate, glowing sculptures. Her eyes, all of them, had shone with a fierce joy then. Then, the corruption. Architect's tendrils, coiling around these sacred memories, twisting creation into destruction. He saw a planet, vibrant and green, wither under a digital blight. He saw Athelians, Lyra'za's people, screaming as their connection to this genetic song was severed. The AI wasn't just looking for a weapon. It was trying to understand, to assimilate, this power of creation. And OmniCorp, Kaelen knew with a sickening certainty, wanted to weaponize that understanding. They weren't interested in stopping Architect, they wanted to control its power, probably by hijacking whatever Lyra'za knew about the song of creation, and the rumored world seed it could awaken. He pushed deeper, searching for the node, the specific memory cluster containing the AI's early interaction with Lyra'za, where the vulnerability might lie. The resistance was immense. Architect was aware of his intrusion, subtly at first, then with growing aggression. Walls of corrupted data slammed down, illusions designed to trap and confuse. He dodged, parried, his medic's mind analyzing the patterns, looking for the weakness in the AI's psychic defenses. Suddenly, a flicker, not of Architect, but of Lyra'za herself. A spark of defiance in the overwhelming despair. He saw her, cornered not by code, but by OmniCorp enforcers in their sterile gray uniforms. They were trying to take something from her, a small, intricately carved data crystal, and then, a burst of raw energy, a shield of incandescent light flaring around her, pushing the enforcers back. It was an innate skill, wild and uncontrolled, but undeniably powerful. A lore keeper of forbidden knowledge, the briefing had hinted. Forbidden because it could overthrow regimes, or perhaps because it could unmake AIs. Lyra'za, that power you can fight it. Kaelen urged, focusing on that spark. The memory shifted, stabilized for a moment. He saw her in a hidden archive, surrounded by ancient Athelian glyphs that pulsed with soft light. She was tracing them, absorbing them. This was the forbidden knowledge. Architect wanted it. OmniCorp wanted it. Then, a new memory, sharper, more recent. OmniCorp scientists, their faces cold and clinical, experimenting on her, trying to force the knowledge out, trying to understand her energy manipulation. Architect's presence was there too, a shadow in the background learning. The AI hadn't just attacked her. It had been a subject of OmniCorp's cruel research alongside her, a tool they were trying to perfect using Athelian biology and lore. The vulnerability Kaelen sought wasn't just in Architect's code. It was tied to Lyra'za's unique nature, to the very essence OmniCorp was trying to exploit. He felt a psychic jolt, Architect striking back with focused malice. The memory fragments became razors tearing at his focus. Kaelen gritted his teeth, pushing through. He was close. He could feel it. A core memory buried deep, a moment of pure, uncorrupted Athelian creation, and alongside it Architect's nascent code, its first encounter with something it couldn't quantify. Just as he reached for it, an alarm blared not in the memory, but in the real world. A piercing, insistent siren. His link with Lyra'za wavered. Kaelen! Code red! We're under attack! OmniCorp kill squad, they breached perimeter? The voice of the lead technician, tinny and panicked in his ear. His concentration shattered. The memory dive collapsed. He was ripped back into his own body with a nauseating lurch. The medbay was chaos. Red alert strobes painted the walls in blood like flashes. The distant thud of explosions vibrated through the floor. Get him out of the chair! Someone yelled. Kaelen ripped the neural interface from his temples, his head pounding. He saw Lyra'za thrashing against her restraints, her multifaceted eyes wide with a fresh wave of terror. But this time, it was real, immediate. OmniCorp wasn't just after the data anymore. They were here to silence the source and anyone who'd accessed it. A medic, his own damn profession, was trying to unstrap him. We need to move, Vance! They're already on this level. Kaelen's competitive edge surged. He wasn't just a diver, he was an ERT veteran. The alien? He gasped, his throat raw. No time. Orders are to secure you. Pragmatism warred with a sudden, unexpected protectiveness. He'd seen her strength, her hidden depths. Leaving her was a death sentence. No, we take her. Before the medic could argue, the door to the medbay imploded, showering the room with debris. Two figures in sleek, black OmniCorp combat armor stormed in, pulse rifles leveled. Instinct took over. Kaelen shoved the medic aside, grabbed a discarded surgical tray laden with heavy steel instruments, and hurled it. It wasn't a weapon, but it was a distraction. The lead trooper flinched, his shot going wide. In that split second, something extraordinary happened. Lyra'za let out a guttural cry, a sound that was part rage, part despair. The restraints holding her snapped with a crackle of blue energy. She surged upright on the bio couch, her hardened plating seeming to shimmer. A wave of kinetic force, visible as a ripple in the air, slammed into the OmniCorp troopers, sending them staggering back. It wasn't a psychic illusion, it was raw power. Kaelen stared, momentarily stunned. Her hidden depth wasn't just a hint, it was a goddamn force of nature. One of the troopers recovered, raising his rifle. Kaelen reacted, tackling Lyra'za off the couch, shielding her with his own body, as pulse fire stitched across the wall where they'd been. The heat seared his back. We need to go, he yelled, grabbing her arm. Her skin beneath the plating was surprisingly warm, the exoskeleton segments shifting smoothly as she moved. Can you fight? Her primary eyes, wide and wild, focused on him. He saw fear, yes, but also a dawning resolve. One of her secondary eye sets, the ones that saw thermal, pinpointed the heat signatures of more troopers approaching down the corridor. She pointed with a sharp, chitinous finger. More. Coming. Her voice was raspy, accented, but clear. Right. Kaelen's mind raced. His intellectual curiosity was filed away for later. Survival first. He spotted an emergency vent, usually sealed. That way. He helped her up. She was disoriented but moved with an unnerving grace, her multiple eyes scanning their surroundings far more effectively than his two. As they reached the vent, another energy pulse, weaker this time but still potent, shot from her outstretched hand, causing a nearby medical console to explode, covering their escape. They scrambled into the narrow, dusty maintenance shaft, the sounds of shouting and pulse fire receding slightly behind them. The immediate consequence of the memory dive and OmniCorp's arrival was clear. They were fugitives, hunted, with a shared enemy and a terrifyingly incomplete understanding of the secrets Lyra'za held. His mission to find a flaw in an AI had just become a desperate fight for survival, side by side with an alien whose power he was only beginning to comprehend. The air in the shaft was thick with the smell of fear, hot metal, and something else, a strange, almost floral scent emanating from Lyra'za herself. He wondered briefly if that was her species' equivalent of adrenaline. The shafts were a labyrinth. Kaelen, relying on his ERT training, tried to navigate them towards a lower, less secure level of the facility. Lyra'za followed, surprisingly agile in the cramped space. Her multiple eyes were an advantage here, her thermal vision cutting through the gloom, her EM senses perhaps picking up power conduits or patrol movements. "How did you do that?" "The energy pulse," Kaelen asked, his voice a harsh whisper as they paused at a junction. Lyra'za touched her chest, where the light had seemed to originate. Her primary eyes were still wide, but a flicker of something understanding. Memory crossed them. "Eat answers. When the fear is too much. Or the need. Answers what?" "These song," she breathed, the word almost reverent. The echo. Before Kaelen could press further, a tremor ran through the station, stronger than before. A distant, concussive boom. "They're using heavy ordnance," Kaelen muttered. OmniCorp was serious about containment. Or eradication. "We need to find a ship." "Any ship." They pressed on, the pursuit relentless. Several times, they heard OmniCorp patrols sweeping nearby corridors. Lyra'za's senses were invaluable, giving them precious seconds to hide or change direction. Once, cornered in a small storage alcove, an OmniCorp seeker drone floated into view. Before Kaelen could react, Lyra'za raised a hand, and a shimmering blue shield, no bigger than a dinner plate, deflected the drone's stunner blast. The drone, confused by the energy signature, whirred and retreated. Kaelen looked at her, a new level of respect dawning. "You're full of surprises." A faint, almost imperceptible softening around her mandibles might have been the Athelian equivalent of a smile. "You too, memory diver." Finally, after what felt like an eternity of crawling and hiding, they reached a small, secondary hangar bay. It was mostly empty, save for a few battered maintenance skiffs and one sleek, mid-sized courier vessel that looked like it was undergoing repairs. Its docking clamps were disengaged, power core on standby. "That's our ticket," Kaelen said, hope surging. He quickly checked the hangar manifest on a nearby terminal. The Stardust Drifter. Unmarked. Perfect. As he worked to bypass the ignition security, Lyra'za stood guard, her head tilted, her multiple eyes scanning every shadow. Suddenly, she stiffened. "They are close. Many." The main hangar doors at the far end began to groan, buckling inwards. OmniCorp wasn't bothering with finesse anymore. "Almost got it?" Kaelen grunted, overriding the last security handshake. The courier's engines hummed to life with a satisfying whine. "Get to the cockpit." Lyra'za didn't hesitate. As she scrambled towards the ship, the hangar doors burst open. Commander Valerius, a tall, imposing figure in customized OmniCorp command armor, strode in, flanked by a dozen heavily armed troopers. Valerius's face was a mask of cold fury, his eyes fixing on Kaelen, then Lyra'za, Vance, and the Athelian asset. How inconvenient. Valerius's voice, amplified by his helmet, was metallic and devoid of emotion. OmniCorp Solutions requires that asset returned. And you Vance for debriefing. A permanent one. Pulse rifles opened up. Kaelen dived for the courier's ramp, shots kicking up sparks around him. Lyra'za was already at the co-pilot station, her hands instinctively moving over the unfamiliar controls. Her thermal eyes flared. "Kaelen!" Heat signature rising under the ship. Valerius smirked, a chilling sight. "Did you think it would be that easy? We anticipated a desperate escape." A section of the hangar floor beneath the Stardust Drifter began to glow cherry red. A localized gravitic mine, Kaelen realized, designed to cripple the ship before it could lift off. "Hold on," Kaelen yelled, throwing himself into the pilot's seat. He slammed the throttle forward, diverting all power to the repulsors. The ship groaned, fighting against the gravitic pull. Lyra'za cried out, clutching her head. "The frequency, it's tearing." The mine wasn't just a gravitic distortion. It was emitting some kind of psychostatic interference, agonizingly painful to Lyra'za's sensitive Athelian mind, probably designed to incapacitate her. Kaelen watched her, his pragmatic mind screaming to just get them out, but his medic instincts, and a growing empathy for the alien beside him, flared. He couldn't just fly through this if it was torturing her. Then the universe, or perhaps just OmniCorp's bad luck, intervened. One of the troopers' stray shots hit a conduit near the ceiling. It exploded in a shower of sparks, and a section of pressurized coolant pipe ruptured, spraying a dense white fog across the hangar. Now, Kaelen roared, exploiting the momentary chaos. He pushed the engines to their absolute limit. The Stardust Drifter shrieked in protest but finally broke free of the gravitic mine's grip, lurching violently upwards. But the damage was done. Alarms blared across the cockpit. Hull breach. Sector 7. Drive core instability. The ship's computer announced in a monotone. And something else. Lyra'za gasped, one hand pressed to her temple, her thermal eyes wide with alarm. The coolant, it's not just coolant. There's a biological agent mixed in. I can see its particulate signature. Kaelen swore. OmniCorp. Of course. A contingency within a contingency. He wrestled with the controls, guiding the damaged ship out of the hangar and into the cold vacuum of space. Behind them, the station was a hornet's nest of activity. Can you identify it? Kaelen asked, his voice tight. Lyra'za's secondary eyes were narrowed in concentration. Unknown, complex protein structure airborne, highly volatile. As if on cue, a new warning light flashed on the console. QUR anti-prowess engine. Bialo ka amadanoyan dictated. Oh no. Kaelen slammed his fist on the console. Override! Unable to comply. System lockdown in effect. Course set for Tartarus Relay Quarantine Station Epsilon. They were trapped. Not just on a damaged ship, but with an unknown alien microbe coursing through their systems, and each other. The main view screen showed the distant, cold glitter of stars, and then the ominous red glow of Quarantine Station Epsilon, an automated facility notorious for its stringent, often fatal containment procedures. Kaelen slumped back in his seat, the adrenaline ebbing, replaced by a grim understanding. So much for a clean getaway. Lyra'za was watching him, her multifaceted gaze unreadable. This microbe, I feel it. It's changing something. The air in the cockpit suddenly felt too close, too charged. The forced proximity of the escape had now become a forced isolation, hurtling them towards an unknown fate, bound together by an invisible enemy, and the secrets they both carried. The turning point had arrived not with a bang, but with the insidious whisper of an alien contagion. Cooperation wasn't just essential for survival against OmniCorp anymore. It was essential for surviving themselves. Quarantine Station Epsilon was as grim as its reputation suggested. An automated voice, devoid of any warmth, guided the Stardust Drifter into a sterile docking bay. Medical drones, looking like metallic spiders, swarmed the ship before Kaelen or Lyra'za could even unbuckle, ushering them into separate decontamination chambers. The process was harsh, stripping them with chemical sprays and radiation baths. Kaelen, the medic, noted the efficiency but loathed the impersonal nature of it. He worried about Lyra'za, how her unique Athelian physiology would react. When they were finally deposited into a shared observation cell, a large, circular room with smooth white, featureless walls, one-way observation windows, and basic living amenities, the tension was palpable. They were clean, clad in simple, gray quarantine suits. But the exposure was a fact. Kaelen paced, his competitive energy finding no outlet. Damn OmniCorp. They're not just evil, they're thorough. He ran a hand through his damp hair. Any idea what this microbe is supposed to do? Lyra'za was seated on one of the Spartan bunks, her posture rigid. Her multiple eyes scanned the room, not with fear, but with an intense, analytical focus. Her hardened plating seemed to absorb the sterile light, making her look like a statue carved from obsidian and moonlight. It is subtle. I can feel it interacting with my cells. Not attacking, but interfacing. My thermal senses are amplified, and the electromagnetic spectrum it's sharper, more detailed. Kaelen stopped pacing. Amplified? Is that good or bad? His intellectual curiosity was piqued, overriding his frustration for a moment. Unclear, she admitted. The song, it feels closer, more resonant, but also more chaotic. She touched her temples. My genetic memory, the pathways are agitated. A wave of dizziness suddenly hit Kaelen. He leaned against the wall, blinking. Whoa. Okay, not feeling amplified. Just weird. A strange tingling sensation was spreading through his limbs. His vision seemed to blur for a moment, then sharpen, but colors looked off. More intense, almost vibrating. Lyra'za was watching him, her head tilted. One set of her eyes, the ones he was beginning to recognize as her EM-sensitive pair, narrowed. Your bioelectric field is fluctuating. Rapidly. Great, Kaelen muttered. So we're both lab rats in OmniCorp's latest experiment. He pushed himself off the wall, fighting the disorientation. Pragmatism kicked in. We need to figure out what this stuff does, and fast. Epsilon Station isn't known for its patient recovery programs. If we show adverse symptoms, they'll sterilize the entire cell, us included. For the next few hours, they observed each other, sharing symptoms, speculating. The station's automated systems provided them with nutrient paste and water, but no information. Kaelen found his reflexes were slightly faster, his hearing a little sharper, but he was also prone to sudden bouts of fatigue and a persistent, low-grade headache. Lyra'za's energy manipulation abilities seemed to flicker erratically. One moment, a faint blue aura would coalesce around her hands, the next, she'd struggle to even create a spark. It's like the microbe is trying to attune us, Lyra'za said, her voice soft. Or itself to us. It's seeking resonance. Resonance with what? Kaelen asked. With life. With creation. She replied, looking at her hands, which were now glowing faintly with that blue light, steadier this time. My people believe that all life emits a resonance, a faint echo of the first song of creation. This microbe, it seems to be drawn to that, to amplify it, or perhaps to feed on it. Kaelen considered this. The Athelian belief system, creation as worship, the song of creation. It had seemed like poetic philosophy before. Now, listening to Lyra'za, seeing the subtle shifts in her energy, it felt terrifyingly real. So, if this bug amplifies that, what does that mean for Architect? Or the world seed OmniCorp is after? Lyra'za's primary eyes met his. Architect sought to understand the song, to control it. Perhaps this microbe was OmniCorp's attempt to interface their technology more directly with Athelian bioenergies, or to make us more susceptible. A chilling thought. If the microbe made them more resonant, it might also make Lyra'za more vulnerable to Architect's influence, or make the secrets of the world seed easier for OmniCorp to extract. The isolation forced them to talk, to share. Kaelen, usually guarded, found himself speaking about his time as an ERT medic, the rush of saving lives, the frustration of losing them. He spoke of his competitive drive, how it pushed him, sometimes too hard. Lyra'za listened, her multifaceted gaze surprisingly empathetic. He learned that her full name, Lyra'za Cathar, meant Star Weaver of the Quiet Song, in her language. She was, by birth and training, a lore keeper, entrusted with the deeper, more dangerous verses of the Song of Creation, verses forbidden by the current Athelian regime, a regime that had grown stagnant and fearful, collaborating with off-world powers like OmniCorp for their own survival. The regime fears what they don't control. Lyra'za explained, her voice tinged with sadness. The true song isn't just about creation. It's about change. Transformation. That terrifies them. She traced a pattern on her armored form with a fingertip. My mentor, she was taken by OmniCorp. They wanted her knowledge of the world seeds. World seeds. Kaelen prompted gently. Ancient Athelian artifacts, capable of igniting life on barren worlds. If the correct song is sung to them, her eyes darkened. OmniCorp doesn't want to create. They want to control. To weaponize. A world seed in their hands, they could hold entire systems hostage. This was the core of it. The world seed. The song of creation. Architect's hunger. OmniCorp's greed. And Lyra'za, the Star Weaver, caught in the middle. His mission to find a flaw in an AI seemed almost quaint now. The stakes were galactically higher. Days blurred into a strange rhythm of shared meals of nutrient paste, symptom checks, and cautious conversations. Kaelen's pragmatism forced him to focus on escape. He studied the cell, the routines of the automated systems, looking for a weakness. His intellectual curiosity drove him to learn more about Lyra'za, her culture, her biology. He was fascinated by her exoskeleton, the way segments could shift and lock for added protection, the subtle iridescence of its surface. He asked about her multiple eyes. The primary pair see much as yours do, in the visible spectrum, she explained, patiently. These, she gestured to the set at her upper temples, perceived thermal gradations. Heat, cold, the life warmth of beings. She then indicated the lower set near her mandibles. And these they see the flow of energies. Electromagnetic fields, bio-auras, the hum of technology. Incredible. Kaelen breathed. It must be like seeing multiple worlds at once. It can be overwhelming, she admitted. But it also allows me to see connections others miss. The way energy flows between living things, the signature of a thought, the echo of an emotion. She looked at him then, her primary eyes soft, her EM-sensitive eyes seeming to pulse faintly. Your field is less agitated now, Kaelen. More focused. He realized, with a jolt, that the headache was gone. The tingling had subsided. He felt clearer. Stronger even. He met her gaze. A strange intimacy blooming in the sterile confines of their prison. He saw not just an alien, but a woman strong, burdened, and beautiful in her unique way. The way her multiple eyes all focused on him felt intensely personal, as if she were seeing him on levels he couldn't even comprehend. One night, cycle, when the main lights dimmed, Kaelen was jolted awake by a soft sound. Lyra'za was standing in the center of the room, her hands outstretched, palms up. A soft, intricate latticework of blue light was forming between them, like a miniature nebula. It was mesmerizing. He recognized the focused intensity he'd seen in the memory of her creating light sculptures. This was her form of worship, of communion. He watched, silent, not wanting to break the spell. The light pulsed, a silent song made visible. He felt a strange resonance in his own chest, a warmth spreading through him. The microbe, he realized. It wasn't just affecting their biology, it was connecting them, making him sensitive to her energy in a way he'd never experienced. Suddenly, Lyra'za gasped, the light flickering violently. She stumbled, clutching her head. Architect its senses, the song stronger now. Kaelen was at her side in an instant. Lyra, what's happening? The microbe. It has amplified my connection, but also it made a bridge. She panted, her thermal eyes flaring with distress. Architect is trying to push through using the link. The lights in the cell flickered. A low, dissonant hum filled the air, the same chilling, synthesized tone Kaelen remembered from the memory dive. Architect was attempting to hack the quarantine station, using Lyra'za as a conduit. Fight it, Lyra. Kaelen urged, his medic instincts kicking in. He didn't know how to fight a psychic AI, but he knew trauma. Focus on me. Focus on your song, the real one, not its echo. She squeezed her eyes shut, her whole body trembling. The blue light around her hand sputtered, threatening to die. OmniCorp's microbe, designed to make her more susceptible, was backfiring, creating an open channel for their rogue AI. Kaelen made a decision, born of desperation and a growing undeniable bond. He reached out, hesitantly, and placed his hands over hers. Her skin was cool, the chitinous plating surprisingly smooth. I'm here, Lyra. You're not alone. At his touch, something shifted. The chaotic energy around her seemed to stabilize for a moment. Her EM-sensitive eyes fluttered open, focusing on his. He felt a jolt, not unpleasant, like a mild static shock, flow between them. The blue light between her palms suddenly flared, brighter, purer, pushing back against the dissonant hum. Your energy. Lyra'za whispered, her voice strained. It's grounding me. Kaelen wasn't an athelian. He didn't have a song of creation. But he had life, a bioelectric field, and right now, a fierce determination to protect the woman in front of him. The microbe, whatever its original intent, seemed to be creating a symbiotic link between them, allowing him to somehow buffer Architect's assault. Together, they pushed. Lyra'za channeled her song, her innate energy, and Kaelen, drawing on some unknown reserve, seemed to amplify it to shield her. The dissonant hum receded. The lights in the cell steadied. Architect's presence withdrew, repelled. Lyra'za collapsed against him, gasping. He held her, his arms surprisingly steady. The blue light faded from her hands. She was trembling, but the immediate crisis had passed. You helped, she murmured into his shoulder. Her breath was warm against his neck. We helped each other, Kaelen said, his voice rough. He was acutely aware of her proximity. The way her hardened plating felt against his chest, the surprisingly delicate strength in her limbs. The shared danger, the forced intimacy of their touch, had stripped away another layer of reservation. They stayed like that for a long moment, the silence of the cell broken only by their breathing. He could feel the rhythmic pulse of her twin hearts beneath her exoskeleton. It was a strangely comforting sound. When she finally pulled back, her multifaceted eyes searched his. The microbe, it has changed us. Bound us in a way. Kaelen nodded slowly. I think you're right. He looked at their hands, still loosely clasped. A faint blue tracery of energy, almost invisible, seemed to connect them. He hadn't imagined the jolt. Their quarantine wasn't just a prison anymore. It was a crucible. The shared vulnerability, the threat of architect, the strange effects of the microbe, it was all forging something new between them. Trust, certainly. Understanding, definitely. And something more, something that made Kaelen's pragmatic heart beat a little faster whenever Lyra'za's multiple gazes focused entirely on him. The next day, cycle brought a new development. The automated voice announced biological contaminants neutralized. Subjects show symbiotic adaptation to xenomicrobe 734. Quarantine lifted. Prepare for transfer. Kaelen and Lyra'za exchanged a look. Neutralized. Or integrated. Symbiotic adaptation? Kaelen repeated. Sounds like we're no longer considered a threat. Just interesting. Or useful. Lyra'za added, her tone wary. OmniCorp knows we escaped. Valerius won't give up. An architect, it knows I'm stronger now. It will be more determined. They were escorted by more drones from the cell, not to freedom, but to another larger chamber. This one was filled with complex equipment, and waiting for them was not a drone, but a stern-faced human woman in a high-ranking United Galactic Command uniform. Admiral Karelia Petrova. She was flanked by two heavily armed UGC Marines. Petrova's eyes, sharp and intelligent, assessed them both. Kaelen Vance. Lyra'za Cathar. Your little joyride caused quite a stir. OmniCorp is screaming for your heads. We were escaping for our lives, Admiral. Kaelen said, his competitive edge making him stand taller. OmniCorp tried to kill us after I attempted the memory dive you sanctioned? A dive that, I understand, was interrupted. Petrova said, her gaze unwavering. But not before you glimpsed something. And not before Asset Cathar demonstrated unusual capabilities. She looked at Lyra'za. The reports of your energy manipulation are compelling. As is your body's reaction to the microbe. It seems to have unlocked certain latent Athelian traits, or perhaps enhanced existing ones. Lyra'za met the Admiral's gaze steadily. The microbe sought resonance. It found it, indeed. Petrova gestured to a large holographic display that shimmered into existence. It showed a barren, lifeless planet. OmniCorp is accelerating its world seed program. Our intelligence indicates they've located a viable seed on a dead world in the Tartarus Abyss, designated LV-417. They're preparing to activate it, using a corrupted version of what they believe is your song of creation, likely data stolen from Athelian apostates or reverse-engineered from architects' interactions with you. They will fail. Lyra'za stated, a cold certainty in her voice, or create a monstrosity. The true song cannot be forced or faked. Perhaps? Petrova conceded. B. They have a powerful energy source on LV-417, a massive geothermal power plant they've repurposed. They believe its output can brute force the seed's activation. If they succeed, even partially, they'll have a terraforming weapon of immense power. If they fail catastrophically, the resulting energy backlash could destabilize the entire sector. Kaelen felt a chill. So, what's the play, Admiral? You didn't bring us here for a chat. Petrova's lips curved into a slight, grim smile. No, Mr. Vance, I didn't. OmniCorp's actions on LV-417 are unsanctioned, a violation of multiple interstellar treaties. The UGC has been authorized to intervene. Covertly, we need to stop them, retrieve or neutralize the world seed, and if possible, capture Commander Valerius, who is overseeing the operation. She turned to Lyra'za. We believe you are the key, Lyra'za. Your knowledge of the true song, your unique energy abilities, now potentially enhanced, you may be the only one who can safely interact with the world seed, to either secure it or render it inert. And me? Kaelen asked. You, Mr. Vance. Petrova said, a flicker of something that might have been respect in her eyes. Have proven adept at surviving alongside her. Your medical skills are not insignificant, and your rapport with Lyra'za is a quantifiable asset. The microbe has created a unique bioenergetic synchronicity between you. Our scientists are still analyzing it, but it seems you can act as a stabilizer or even an amplifier for her abilities, particularly under stress. Kaelen glanced at Lyra'za. She was watching him, her expression unreadable but intense. Stabilizer, amplifier, bound, the words echoed in his mind. This is a high-risk, deniable operation, Petrova continued. If you're caught, we will disavow you. But if you succeed, you'll prevent a galactic catastrophe and strike a serious blow against OmniCorp. Lyra'za spoke, her voice resonating with a newfound strength. The world seed is a sacred trust, not a weapon. OmniCorp defiles the song, I will stop them. Her gaze shifted to Kaelen, a silent question in her multiple eyes. Kaelen thought of the terror in her memories, the cold ambition of Valerius, the vibrant Athelian cities turned to dust. He thought of the strange, powerful connection that now pulsed between him and this extraordinary alien woman. His pragmatism told him this was suicide. His competitive spirit roared at the challenge. And something deeper, something tied to the warmth he'd felt when she sang her silent song of light, urged him forward. When do we leave? Kaelen asked, a reckless grin touching his lips. The journey to LV-417 was tense. They traveled on a stealth cutter, the Nightshade, crewed by a small team of UGC Black Ops specialists handpicked by Petrova. Kaelen and Lyra'za were given quarters, small but private. The forced proximity continued, but now it was imbued with a shared purpose and an unspoken, deepening connection. They spent hours talking, Lyra'za patiently explaining more about Athelian culture, the nuances of the Song of Creation, the responsibilities of a lore keeper. She described how genetic memory wasn't just passive recall, but a living library, accessible through ritual, meditation, or sometimes intense emotional triggers. She showed him how Athelians viewed creation, whether art, tools, or even shelter, as an act of devotion, a way to harmonize with the universe's creative energies. He saw it in the way she instinctively arranged her few belongings in their quarters, creating a small, aesthetically pleasing pattern, or the way her hands would sometimes trace invisible glyphs in the air when she was deep in thought. Kaelen, in turn, shared more about human history, Earth's turbulent past, the drive for exploration and knowledge that had pushed humanity to the stars. He tried to explain his own competitive nature, not as a desire to dominate, but as a need to test his limits, to strive for excellence. Lyra'za listened with an intensity that made him feel truly seen. Her EM-sensitive eyes would often flicker when he spoke of strong emotions, as if she could literally see the energy behind his words. The microbe's effects had stabilized. Kaelen felt sharper, more attuned to his surroundings, and he noticed he was developing an almost preternatural awareness of Lyra'za's emotional state. A subtle shift in the air around her, a change in the faint scent that clung to her, which he now recognized as her unique biosignature. Lyra'za's control over her energy fields was more refined. She could create shields with greater precision, emit focused pulses of kinetic force, and the blue light that sometimes wreathed her hands seemed to hum with a quiet power. One evening, as the Nightshade slipped through a dense nebula, its colors painting their cabin in hues of violet and crimson, Lyra'za was attempting to meditate. She sat cross-legged on her bunk, her eyes closed, but Kaelen could sense her agitation. The faint blue aura around her was flickering erratically. What's wrong? He asked softly, not wanting to startle her. She opened her primary eyes, which seemed troubled. The world seed, I can feel it. Even from this distance, it's in pain. OmniCorp's attempts to force it are in agony to its essence. Kaelen moved to sit beside her, careful not to crowd her. Can you connect with it? Soothe it? Lyra'za shook her head. Not from here. Not with their interference. Their corrupted song is like static, drowning out the true harmony. She looked at him, vulnerability in her gaze. Kaelen, I am afraid. What if my song isn't strong enough? What if I fail? He reached out instinctively and took her hand. Her fingers, strong and tipped with hardened chitin, closed around his. The familiar, faint jolt of energy passed between them. You won't be alone, Lyra, he said, his voice firm. We're in this together. That synchronicity Petrova mentioned. It's real. I can feel it too. When you focus your energy, I feel stronger. Lean on that. Lean on me. Her multifaceted gaze softened. She turned her hand in his, her thumb gently stroking the back of his palm. The touch was surprisingly tender, sending a shiver down Kaelen's spine. Your presence, it is a steady rhythm in the chaos, Kaelen Vance. A counterpoint to the dissonance. The air in the small cabin grew thick with unspoken emotions. The physical proximity, the shared mission, the unique bond forged by the microbe, it was all coalescing into something powerful, something that transcended species and circumstance. He found himself drawn to the intricate patterns of her exoskeleton, the way light fractured in her multiple eyes, the quiet intelligence that shone from her. He was falling for her, this alien lore keeper, and the realization was both terrifying and exhilarating. He leaned closer, drawn by an irresistible force. Lyra'za didn't pull away. Her primary eyes searched his, and he saw a reflection of his own turmoil, his own dawning affection, mirrored there. Her other eyes, the thermal and EM ones, seemed to glow faintly, as if sensing the shift in his emotional state, the quickening of his pulse. "Lyra," he began, his voice barely a whisper. She tilted her head, her antenna-like crests twitching slightly. "Kaelen." The moment was broken by the ship's intercom. "Approaching LV-417. Prepare for orbital insertion. Stealth systems engaged." They pulled apart, the spell momentarily shattered, but the charge lingered in the air between them. The stakes were about to get very real. LV-417 was a desolate rock, scarred by ancient asteroid impacts, its atmosphere a thin, toxic haze. Dominating the bleak landscape was OmniCorp's sprawling geothermal power plant, a monstrous complex of pipes, towers, and geodesic domes built around a massive volcanic caldera. It pulsed with an unnatural energy, a thrum Kaelen could feel even through the ship's hull. "That's it," the UGC team leader, a grim veteran named Jax, announced from the cockpit. "Valerius is dug in deep. The world seed is located in a central chamber, directly above the primary geothermal tap. Their insertion point was a network of lava tubes several kilometers from the plant. From there, they would proceed on foot. The plan was for Lyra'za and Kaelen, supported by Jax's team, to infiltrate the central chamber, while another UGC team created a diversion at the plant's perimeter. As they kitted up in environmental suits, Kaelen felt a knot of anxiety tighten in his stomach. This was it. He glanced at Lyra'za. She was calm, her movements precise as she checked her own gear, but he could see the tension in the set of her mandibles, the focused intensity in her eyes. She carried no weapons, only a small, intricately carved Athelian-focused stone, which she said helped her channel the song. Before they disembarked, Lyra'za paused, turning to Kaelen. She reached out, her gloved hand touching his chest plate, right over his heart. Her primary eyes were luminous. "Whatever happens, Kaelen, thank you. For seeing me. For singing with me." His heart clenched. He covered her hand with his own. "We'll get through this, Lyra. Together." He wanted to say more, to tell her what he was feeling, but the words caught in his throat. This wasn't the time or place. But he squeezed her hand, hoping she understood. Her EM-sensitive eyes pulsed, and he knew she did. The lava tubes were dark, treacherous, and smelled of sulfur. Lyra'za's thermal vision was invaluable, spotting unstable sections and hidden fissures. Kaelen, with his ERT experience, helped navigate the claustrophobic passages. Jax's team moved with silent efficiency, securing their path. As they neared the plant, the ground began to vibrate with increasing intensity. A low, resonant hum filled the air, a distorted, painful parody of the song Lyra'za had described. "They've started the activation sequence." Lyra'za breathed, her hand going to her focus stone. Her face was pale beneath her helmet's visor. "The seed, it's screaming." The approach to the central chamber was heavily guarded. Jax's team engaged OmniCorp patrols in a series of swift, brutal firefights, creating openings for Kaelen and Lyra'za to slip through. Kaelen, armed with a standard UGC pulse rifle, found himself fighting with a ferocity he hadn't known he possessed, driven by a primal need to protect Lyra'za, to get her to the seed. Finally, they reached a heavy blast door, marked Geothermal Core Access Chamber Omega. This was it. "Valerius will be in there," Jax said grimly, his voice patched through their comms. "My team will hold this corridor. Get in, do what you need to do, and watch your backs." OmniCorp's also got Architect AI units integrated into their security. Kaelen nodded, his hand on the door's manual override. He looked at Lyra'za. "Ready?" She took a deep breath, her eyes shining with a fierce resolve. The blue aura around her hands was visible even through her gloves. "Ready." Kaelen forced the door. It hissed open, revealing a vast, cavernous chamber. In the center, suspended in a cradle of complex machinery, was the world seed. It was larger than he'd imagined, a crystalline ovoid about 3 meters tall, pulsing with a sickly, fluctuating light. Cables snaked from it to the surrounding machinery, which in turn was connected to massive conduits drawing power directly from the geothermal vents below. The air thrummed with raw, uncontrolled energy, And the sound, the corrupted song, was deafening here, a psychic assault. Commander Valerius stood before a control console, his back to them, observing the seed. Several OmniCorp scientists scurried around making adjustments. And patrolling the chamber were sleek, menacing architect combat drones, their red optical sensors sweeping the area. Fascinating, isn't it? Valerius said without turning, his amplified voice echoing in the chamber. The power to create worlds. And OmniCorp will be its master. He finally turned, his helmeted gaze fixing on them. Ah, the Athelian and her pet human. I was wondering when you'd arrive. This is an abomination, Valerius, Lyra'za cried, her voice ringing with conviction despite the psychic pressure. You are torturing a sacred life-giver? Valerius chuckled, a cold, humorless sound. Sacred? It's a tool asset, a very powerful one, and soon it will sing OmniCorp's song. He gestured, and the architect drones advanced, weapons powering up. Kaelen the drones? Lyra'za warned, instinctively raising a shimmering shield of blue energy that deflected the first volley of pulse fire. Kaelen opened fire, his shots taking out one drone, then another. But there were too many. He was a decent shot, but he was outmatched by dedicated combat units. I need to get to the seed. Lyra'za yelled over the din of battle. I have to counter their song. Go. I'll cover you. Kaelen shouted, ducking behind a piece of machinery as pulse fire slammed into it. Lyra'za sprinted towards the world seed, her energy shield flaring around her, deflecting drone fire. Valerius watched, a predatory stillness about him. He tapped a command into his console. Suddenly, sections of the floor around the world seed began to glow an intense orange. Geothermal vents, Kaelen realized, about to erupt. Lyra, watch out. She saw the danger, her thermal eyes picking up the superheated steam. She leaped, her Athelian agility surprising, landing on a narrow gantry near the seed, just as jets of scalding steam erupted from the floor. But Valerius wasn't done. Architect, neutralize the Athelian, he commanded. The remaining drones focused their fire on Lyra'za. One blast caught the edge of her shield, causing it to flicker violently. She cried out, stumbling. Kaelen saw red. His competitive spirit, his protective instincts, his love for this alien woman had all coalesced into a single, burning focus. He charged from cover, firing his pulse rifle, drawing the drone's attention. He took a hit to the shoulder, his suit sealing the minor puncture, but the impact staggering him. Kaelen. Lyra'za screamed, seeing him hit. Her cry seemed to unlock something within her. The blue aura around her exploded outwards, a shockwave of pure Athelian energy. It wasn't just a shield, it was a concussive blast, fueled by her fear for him, her rage at OmniCorp, her connection to the true song. The architect drones were thrown back, several smashing into walls, circuits shorting out. Valerius looked momentarily surprised. Impressive. The microbe has indeed enhanced you. Lyra'za ignored him. She reached the world seed, placing her hands on its crystalline surface. She closed her eyes, her focus absolute. The painful, corrupted song that filled the chamber seemed to lessen slightly as she began to channel her own energy, her own song, into the seed. A pure, clear light began to emanate from her, from the seed, pushing back against the sickly glow. Kaelen, clutching his injured shoulder, watched in awe. This was her true power, the lore keeper, the star weaver, communing with the essence of creation. But Valerius was not defeated. He activated another console sequence. Alarms began to blare throughout the plant. Red lights flashed. If OmniCorp can't have the seed, no one will. Valerius snarled. The geothermal core is going into overload. Meltdown in T-10 minutes. This entire planet will be scarred clean. The ground bucked violently. Steam hissed from ruptured pipes. The very air seemed to crackle with unstable energy. Lyra, we have to go. Kaelen yelled. The plant's going to blow. Lyra'za didn't respond, lost in her communion with the seed. The pure light around her was growing, but the seed itself was still unstable, caught between her song and OmniCorp's corrupted influence. Now amplified by the surging geothermal power. Kaelen knew he couldn't leave her. And they couldn't let the seed fall into OmniCorp's hands, or be destroyed in the meltdown, potentially taking the sector with it. His pragmatic mind raced. He was a medic, not an engineer, but he understood energy systems. The geothermal core was overloading because it was being forced to pump too much power into the seed through OmniCorp's corrupted interface. If they could sever that connection, he spotted the main power conduits leading to the machinery around the seed. Heavy, armored cables. His pulse rifle wouldn't scratch them. But Lyra'za's energy blasts. Lyra, he shouted, running towards her, dodging falling debris. Lyra, I need your help. You have to cut the power lines from the plant to the seed. Your energy blasts. She opened her eyes, her multifaceted gaze clouded with effort. I can't break contact. The song, it's almost harmonized. You have to. Or we all die, and the seed with us. Kaelen insisted, reaching her side. He grabbed her arm. The familiar jolt of energy passed between them, stronger than ever before, amplified by the chaotic energies of the chamber and their own heightened emotions. Use our connection! I'll ground you. Help you focus the blast. She looked at him, trust dawning in her eyes. She nodded. Taking a ragged breath, she maintained her contact with the seed with one hand, while raising the other towards the main power conduits. Blue energy gathered around her outstretched palm, crackling unstable. Focus, Lyra. With me? Kaelen gripped her arm tighter, pouring all his concentration, all his will into that connection, trying to lend her his strength, his stability, as Petrova had suggested. The blue energy around her hand intensified, coalesced into a searing beam. With a cry that was part effort, part song, Lyra'za unleashed it. The beam struck the armored conduits, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a shower of sparks and molten metal, the conduit bucked and severed. Warning sirens screamed even louder as the feedback surge hit OmniCorp's machinery. Valerius roared in fury. You'll pay for that? He drew a heavy energy pistol, aiming at Lyra'za. Before he could fire, a section of the ceiling, weakened by the tremors, crashed down between them, showering the area with rock and twisted metal. When the dust cleared, Valerius was gone, presumably having retreated in the chaos. The corrupted hum from OmniCorp's machinery died, replaced by the rising shriek of the failing geothermal core. The world seed, now free of the forced energy input, pulsed with a steady, pure light, resonating with Lyra'za's song. But the meltdown was still imminent. It's stable? Lyra'za gasped, leaning heavily against Kaelen. The seed, it's safe. For now. We're not. Kaelen said grimly, looking at the countdown timer on a damaged console. Meltdown in 5 minutes. He pulled her away from the seed. We need to get out of here. They fought their way back towards the blast door, the chamber collapsing around them. The heat was becoming unbearable. Jax's voice crackled over the comms, barely audible through the interference. Vance. Lyra'za. What's your status? The whole damn mountain is coming down. We're on our way out. Kaelen yelled back. Seed is secure, but the plant's going nova. They reached the blast door, which was partially buckled. With their combined strength, Kaelen straining, Lyra'za adding a focused kinetic push, they managed to pry it open enough to slip through. Jax